Welcome back to the Battle Buddies podcast, where we believe that you should not take on the world alone. Today's episode is titled Investing Your Team in a Mission.
In a mission or the mission?
In the mission.
I guess you could go either way.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off or anything.
Let's go with the mission.
The mission. And the mission being your mission statement for your business.
Yes.
Or your goals for whatever team you're creating.
Yeah, really anything. If you're in some sort of leadership position, and I like to keep it open like that so that anyone who's listening to this can apply what we're saying to their role.
Yeah, whether you're a martial arts instructor or teacher or squad leader or softball game organizer, this might be for you.
And just to kind of give a good example of what this is, Gabe, I'm going to have you explain how we kind of operate here at the Max Academy and how we've been able to create a successful team through our team philosophy. Yeah,
for sure. Well, let me start by saying that I and Adam are by no means masters at this field. We definitely have leadership experience. I've ran a leadership class for the past 3 or so years. We've worked on teaching our junior leadership programs multiple times. But really, our main inspiration for this, in particular, what we're talking about today, comes from our boss, from Renshi Matt. Yes, he got a promotion if anyone missed it. I think I already said that. But Renshi Matt has, in essence, created a mass of monsters that are all dedicated to his goal. He has loyal followers that follow him. Now, if you haven't listened to his episode on the history of Max Academy, I totally recommend that you do that. And it's a great listen. To give a little bit of a condensed version, essentially, Max Academy broke from another school. When it was created, it broke from an existing school and bounced around for a good couple years in sort of limbo, gym limbo. We had no facility of our own. We'd go from church gym to school gym to wherever we could. And to show how loyal these people were, or how good of a setting and how good of an instructor Renshi was, he had a loyal following that went with him throughout that whole time. My parents included. I wasn't old enough to make the decisions back then, but they liked him and trusted him enough that they were willing to drive one day 5 minutes, another day 20 minutes, depending on the school we were at the time, to go and take classes with him. And fast forward now, he has created people with such passions, instructors with such drive for the mission that is, we're going to make what Max Academy stands for. We're going to make these students, these people, the best they can possibly be. And he took it and said, this is your goal, now run with it. And I think there's a lot of reasons for why he's been so successful and why what he's built is so, I'm biased when I say this because I've been around since day one, but why it's so amazing. And I'd like to talk about some of those today and how you can use them in your everyday life. And these aren't just what he's done, but this is also a lot of business professors and leadership counselors will say these same things. You'll hear them. So don't just quote me for it. We'll cite our sources whenever we can.
Yeah, and I think something that he's definitely done is he's aligned us with his goal.
Yes.
Right? Like our goal became his goal, right? Or to put it in a better way,
his goal became ours.
Yes, his goal became ours. We share the mission that he set out on. And it really started when we were students. He was the one. He teaches less now than he used to, but when he was teaching a lot more, it was the compliments, it was the telling us, what we were doing right, but also correcting us when we needed it, and just how much he was willing to invest in us manifested us in willing to invest in his mission.
And I know this isn't really the focus of working with the students per se, although that's definitely something we'll talk about. But one of the things that he did was future planning in our lives, saying, this is your goal, here's how you can achieve it, and you should drive for it. And his inspiration drove us forward. And part of why it's been successful is he's been able in a lot of ways to take the reins and pass it to his heavy hitters. And so one of the things that happened is you got a bunch of young, easily passionate people, and their energy, their drive could go any direction. It could go any direction. And he said, this is the direction I want it to do. And that's one of the things we'll talk about, is getting that passion that I think almost everyone has passion for something, at least, or general, I want to be a part of something. And the question is, how do I direct that in a way that is productive and helpful? So one of the first things to note, and I guess this is sort of a meta point, a point within the points, and that is leadership starts with you as the leader, and making a strong team starts with you as the leader, because you are the one that sets the tone, the direction for everyone else. And keeping that in mind is important, because I think a lot of people can fall into the trap of, why aren't you passionate? Why aren't you working hard? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I think it's always important to stop and think, am I doing what I'm supposed to? Am I directing them in the way that I want? And so I listen to a lot of Simon Sinek, who's a leadership trainer and counselor. And one of the things that he says is being a leader isn't just about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. Essentially, your goal as a leader is not just to be a boss, it's to be a shepherd. It's not just to point in the direction you want people to go, it's to lead the charge. And so what that should make you do is, whenever you think something's wrong, you should always start by asking, what am I doing incorrectly? What did I do wrong? What am I doing incorrectly? What do I need to fix? Because if something's happening, chances are it's your fault, right? There's a quote in Band of Brothers, and I'm going to censor it. It's stuff rolls uphill. As in, if there's a problem, it's not just because the people at the bottom had the problem. It's because it was your fault for not explaining it better to them. And so as the leader, it was your fault that you didn't explain it better. It's sort of like Jocko Willink's extreme ownership. The problem can always rest on you because there's always something better you could do. And I know some people will say, it's not always your fault, it's sometimes them. Yes, but if I want to have people who are passionate about what I do, I need to always lead and take responsibility for when something doesn't go my way, and give responsibility when things do go our way. As in, it's my fault when things go wrong, and it's their doing when things go correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in essence, a leader is someone who doesn't blame everyone else for the issues that are happening. They are the ones who take the responsibility to try to remedy any wrongs.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't get them involved when something goes wrong. By no means. One of the things that you should do is problem solve as a group. So, for example, I see this problem arising. I say, hey, this problem arose, guys. How do you think we should fix it? And now it's not me telling you, hey, this is the problem and here's how we're going to fix it. I'm going to make you do this and this. They're coming to the solution on their own. Now, the best part about it is it might be the exact same solution that you were thinking of. But since they came to it, they are now invested in that solution. They figured it out together. It's not just me telling you what to do. It's them saying, this is what we should do. And you saying, yeah, that's a good idea. And going from there, you can say, now that we've figured out this solution, let's all make sure that we're doing it together. And they're more likely to do it because they're invested in the solution. They're invested in the solution because they put their intellect into creating the solution, or fabricating it, I suppose. Maybe they didn't come up with it on their own. Maybe you nudged them towards it. And that's, I think, a good side note for helping people overcome problems in their own lives. I could just tell you, this is what you should do, but I think it's a lot better for them to come up with the solution on their own.
Mm-hmm.
to say, all right, what are you going to do about this? And they say, oh, well, I'm going to do this. And you say, okay, well, what about this? And they say, well, I can do X, Y, Z, and A, B, C. And if you help them come to their own conclusions, guide them, of course, but help them come to their own conclusions, then the conclusion will stick a lot more because it's not just advice. Also, if it's a poor conclusion, they made it themselves and you're not responsible for necessarily, hey, you gave me bad advice. No, we came to this conclusion together and we'll work out a new one if that's what we have to do. But it was a team effort, not just a me effort.
Yeah, and we do this as a staff all the time. There's been plenty of times where Renshi comes to us and he's like, hey guys, this is something we need to work on. Let's brainstorm ideas on how we can work on this thing, or this is a problem, how can we solve this problem, or here's a goal I have in mind for us, how can we reach this goal, or here's just an idea of a cool thing that we can do, what do you guys think about my idea? And we have all those kinds of group discussions, and that helps us. It unites us, really, because then it's not just, oh, we're doing this thing because this one person wants us to do this thing. We're doing this thing because we all want to achieve this thing together.
Yeah.
As a leader, you have to be willing to humble yourself. And that's something I've always appreciated about Renshi. He's always willing to humble himself and get feedback from us about his ideas or how to solve a particular issue.
Yeah. I had a business professor a while back, and she said that everyone knows something you don't. Everyone knows something you don't. And that's true. Everyone knows something you don't. And the wisest man can still be outsmarted by the dumbest fool. It's still possible because there's a chance that they know something that the wisest man doesn't know, because no one's perfect. We don't know everything. And so if you keep that in mind, when you throw ideas or problems to a group, they're going to come at it from an angle that you couldn't because you haven't lived in their shoes. You haven't lived their life. And so you might have been coming at it from this forward approach the whole time, but they come at it from this sideways approach, and all of a sudden everything makes way more sense to you, right? You're learning as well because you're realizing, oh, I've been looking at this the wrong way the whole time, and I need to step out of the box because that's what they're doing. They're looking at it from outside the box. And if I change my angle this way, now I understand their point and I understand how I can make a proper solution. And so always remember that people know something you don't. It's one of the most arrogant statements you can make to say that I know better than everyone.
Yeah.
Because you don't.
Yeah. And that's kind of goes into when we talk about leadership with the students, the difference between a boss and a leader. The boss is the person who's just thinks they know everything, and so they're the person that just quite literally bosses everyone around. The leader is the person who sets that example of humility and is willing to lower themselves and take that feedback from the others, even though they're in the leadership position.
Yeah. And I think this mostly applies to your coworker, or not your coworkers, but your subordinates, the people working for you. But I think it also, in our setting, it applies to the kids too in some amount. For example, I'm going to put the responsibility of success on them and say, and I've said this pretty much word for word before in a class, especially the more rowdy classes, I say, I'm going to do the best I can to give you the best class we've ever done together. But it's up to you to give me your best focus, because if you give me your best focus, we're going to have a great class. And so keeping that in mind, you can use it in a lot of different ways. I think it especially applies to the people that work for you, but also it can be used for really anyone at any time in the correct manner. It's the idea of leading them to solution, leading them to conclusion.
Yes. And I want to go back to a point that you had on our notes here, which is happy employees are all about how they are treated by their leaders and by the people they work with.
Yes. I forgot to say this at the beginning.
Yeah. And that leads me to a thought, which is you can't make your employees your enemies or the people you work with. You have to be willing, you have to be willing to work with the people that you work with. And sometimes that takes an incredible amount of patience. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because it transitions into something very nicely called the emotional bank account, which is something that we've mentioned before, but I think it fits very nicely into this episode, so I wanted to bring it up again, which is the amount of positive feedback you give someone versus the amount of negative feedback you give someone. So anytime I give someone positive feedback, I'm putting money into their bank account, right? Into that bank account that I have with this person. So I have a bank account with Gabe, not actually, but hypothetically, all right? I have an emotional bank account with Gabe. Anytime I say, Gabe, you're doing awesome.
Yes.
That is putting money into my bank account with Gabe. Anytime I say, Gabe, you're not doing good.
Dang it.
I take money out, right? And of course, that's just a silly example. And you'd really do it in a different way. So positive feedback is telling that employee or that person you work with, hey, you're doing good. I like what you're doing. Here's all the things you're doing right. Negative feedback is any correction. And I just need to make sure that I've put in enough money into my bank account, enough good feedback, so that I have money to take out. I am able to make those corrections. And we literally use this philosophy with our students. Whenever we have a new student, we always make sure positive feedback, and more positive feedback, because once it's time to start correcting them, they'll be more willing to listen to us because we've invested so much in them.
Yeah. And just to note something that I think is already fairly clear, not only is negative feedback viable, I think it's essential. It's essential for growth, it's essential for development, and that means it's important to keep your positive feedback high. And by the way, positive feedback is not just compliments. It goes, I think, a lot deeper than that, and it's also getting them on your side. Getting them on your side means getting them to care about you and like you and want to be around you. And if you can get them to do that, they're much more willing to listen to the harder things you have to say. They're much more willing to listen to the negative feedback. If you have strong, positive connection with them, they're way more likely to listen to the less comfortable, hey, we got to sit down and have a talk things.
Yeah. And just to use our students as an example, the convenient thing about working with martial arts students, they already kind of have the same goal as you, which is they want to be good at martial arts.
Yeah.
I want them to be good at martial arts. I also want them to have good character. But I want them to be good at martial arts. And they want to be good at martial arts too. Some of them are more athletic than others. Some of them are just naturally better at martial arts and are just able to grasp it more quickly than others. But wherever they are, they're going to need some negative feedback at some point. So I need to make sure they're already on the same mission as me to get better at martial arts. But in order to do that, I need to push them along by making sure I have a good ratio of negative and positive feedback.
Yeah. And I only wish we had a whole episode devoted to correcting people. Oh, wait a sec. Oh, wait, we do. Oh, there you go. So if you're looking for ways to lessen the effect of negative feedback, we might have an option for you. Go look at the earlier podcast. You might find something interesting there. But
Indeed.
Definitely something good to keep in mind,
Yeah.
the emotional bank account.
Anyway, Gabe,
Yep.
tell me about a trusting environment.
Yes. So the next idea behind getting people invested, and this one is 100% essential, is building trust. And trust is not you trusting them, although that's definitely part of it. It's them trusting you to trust them. And here's what I mean by that. So first of all, trust is not just I am expected to do something and I do that. That's reliability. There's a difference and a big gap between just reliability and trust. And so I got this diagram from Morton Deutsch, who is a mid-20th century psychologist. And he talks about trust having two pieces. One is the level of risk, and two is the benefit and the hazard, the consequences, essentially. And so the first part is the levels of risk, and the second part is the varying levels of consequence. So every risk has consequences. The first thing I have to think is, what is the risk? How high is it? And then what is stronger, the harmful consequences or the beneficial consequences? And if I find that trusting you, which is, by the way, taking a risk, if I find trusting you has low risk and small harmful consequences and lots of beneficial consequences, well, I'm way more likely to trust you then. But if I think that, trusting you, there's a high risk of negative consequences and not a lot I'm going to get out of it, well, then I'm much less likely to do so. And this happens on a daily basis. Every day you have a decent amount of trust for what you see. Like, for example, maybe not me, but most people don't read the terms of agreement. The 30-page thing saying, hey, here's how we're going to use your data or whatnot. Most people don't read them because, quite frankly, they just trust the company that they're there with. And they think, okay, what's the risk? Okay, the risk is maybe they'll be stealing my data. But it's probably not super likely. And if they are stealing my data, it's not going to affect my everyday life that much, I guess. This is just what most people think. I'm not saying whether it's good or not. And so they say, okay, and what are the benefits? I don't have to read 30 pages of mumbo jumbo that I half understand. It's happening every day, whether you think about it or not. And so it's important for them to trust you, definitely, 100%. And it's important for you to trust them. But it's, I think, more important for them to know that you trust them to do whatever is best for making decisions, right? So, for example, I could micromanage you and think, okay, if I don't watch him every second, he's going to dilly-dally. He's going to waste my money by staying on the clock and just kicking back and relaxing and eating potato chips. And so since I think he's going to do that, I'm going to make sure I watch him at every second. And I'm going to make sure that I check in on his work every time I can and make sure that he's always working and never taking a break unless he's off the clock. Otherwise, he's working. And if you have that approach, they'll likely work pretty hard, but it's going to suck all of the passion out of that because they know that you really don't trust them to make wise decisions. So contrast that with, say, a more open, freeing environment. For example, when I was younger, a younger instructor, still old enough to do this, I'd go out and teach a class in Oakley all by myself. Renshi didn't say, hey, you got to teach X and Y and Z. You got to teach all these things. You got to make sure you're going over this. He said, here's your class. Go have fun. And make sure that these are the parameters. This is what the class is. These are the times. Go for it. And if he had said, this is what you must do, this is your tight schedule, and this is everything I want you to make sure you cover, probably wouldn't have had as much joy in it. Kind of sucks the life out of it because now it's not me working as me. And that's part of one thing you definitely have to understand, and this is something that I've had to come to terms with in my leadership classes that I teach, is people are not going to teach the same way as you. People are not going to do things the same way as you. And that's not a bad thing. It's a scary thing. 100% it's a scary thing because you don't know if that's going to work. And maybe it won't work. Maybe they'll flounder around a little while and it'll take them some time to get down the habit. Like I get the privilege of working with a lot of our newer, younger instructors, and they mess up a lot. But so did I when I was their age. And my coaches were generous enough to let me mess up and learn from my mistakes. And so it's my job to not say, this is what you must do. Instead say, hey, you learn and you're going to make some mistakes, yes, but you're going to learn from them and you're going to become a stronger instructor than if I just told you what to do. And so letting them, sort of back to the point we talked about earlier, letting them come to their own conclusions and letting them come to their own solutions is way more beneficial than just telling them the conclusions and solutions yourself.
You have to realize that each member of your team is going to have their own set of strengths and weaknesses, and our team, our strengths and weaknesses all complement each other, and it makes for a great recipe. And especially with our young instructors, we have to allow them to come into those strengths with a certain amount of freedom, with enough guidance so that they will make it there, but with a certain amount of freedom. I remember when I first started teaching, and I would watch the older instructors, and I was just like, man, I can't wait to be like that one day. But I knew that it would just take experience. It would just take being on the mat. It would just take being out there and just doing it. And because I had the freedom to do it, I grew in my confidence.
Yeah, of course. There's a biblical analogy off of this idea, and it's the idea of the body of the church. The body being everyone shares a different role. Some people are the feet, some people are the eyes, some people are the hands, some people are the nose, I guess. And so they all share different purposes. And so imagine that in the situation of business. Some people are going to be more caring. Some people are going to be the more numbers type people. And you want to put them in their strengths. Because if I take the caring person and I stick them behind a desk, they're not going to stick around very long. If you get the humanities person and you say, all right, now you're going to be on accounting, they're probably not going to stick with you very long. But if I put them at the front desk where you're greeting everybody who comes in, okay, well, great. Now they're in their natural habitat and they're more comfortable and they're doing what they enjoy. In the same way, if I put the numbers guy in front of the desk, he's probably going to quit in a couple of days because he goes, oh man, I can't do this. But if I say, okay, here are your strengths, let's do that. And this is not to say that you shouldn't push people to expand their strengths, by no means. But to get people invested, you have to start them where they're strong. Start them where they're strong, especially if you want them to stick around. Start them where they can work well, and let them grow from there. Because they'll do it on their own if they're really invested. And so you have to make sure you're not making everybody eyes.
Yeah,
or making everyone hands.
We don't throw our junior instructors who have never taught a class before right into teaching adult Krav Maga.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that you put people where their strengths are. And so some people are stronger teaching the kids' classes. Some people are stronger at the front desk. Some people are stronger in the fitness classes. And so for us, we have to make sure that we know where we're strongest. Of course, also expanding our strengths and trying the other things. But it's not as though I'm going to put the Kravist on all the Panda classes all the time. Because then I'm never doing what I want to do or what I enjoy doing. People still have to do what they enjoy doing. It's a dichotomy. You also have to do what's going to build you, but it's definitely worth focusing on your strengths as well. So, I don't know. I think it's good to go a little bit of both.
Yeah. And all these points we've talked about so far work in cohesion, and they really do create a very successful but also a very healthy work environment. I think when your employees are in a healthy work environment, it makes the business more successful because the employees can give more into what they're doing.
Yeah. And by the way, trust goes both ways. So if you expect people to trust you and you don't trust them, it's not going to be reciprocated. So once again, back to the first thing we talked about, it starts with you. Getting them in starts with you. If you don't invest your time and your effort, then why on earth are they going to want to invest as well? You set the precedent, you set the example, so you need to start and they'll follow you. They'll follow your lead. And by the way, they might follow your lead stronger than you did. They might end up being more passionate than you are. And that's, I think, perfectly fine. If they get to the point where they're so strong, if I'm so passionate about the business, well, maybe if I'm in, I don't know, some business and my underling starts to get really passionate, well, maybe I'll work on making them into a much higher position. Great. Now they're moving up the ladder because not just because they're good at their job, maybe they're good too, but they want to do it and they want to be there. And if you put that person in charge, not just the person who's most capable, because the most capable person isn't always good in a leadership position. They're sometimes detrimental in a leadership position because they say, how come you can't do these things as well as I can? And those are the people we put in charge. And they don't know how to guide and grow. They just know how to do. And then it creates this nasty cycle where only the competent people who are really good at it survive, but a whole bunch of people get turned off, and maybe it's a much smaller group. And then one competent but not very leadership-oriented person rises to the top, or maybe not very passionate, and then the cycle continues. So instead, it's important to remember, put someone who's competent, of course, but also someone who's good and enjoys what they do and enjoys the task you've given to them. Because then they're going to want to make people better and want to get people to where they are and want to invest in the business.
It's literally that whole concept of influence versus authority, which we talk about with teaching. If I'm a martial arts instructor and I just try to use my authority that I hold in the class to just tell the students to do your 20 push-ups right now, or else you're just going to not get your next belt. I mean, they might do them, but they're not going to develop a passion for fitness or a passion for martial arts. They're not going to enjoy exercising or doing any of the things that make martial arts amazing. They're not going to enjoy any of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lose those students quickly. But if I instead use my influence and get them to want what I want, then I'm in a great place.
For sure. And one of the things that you can do, just for, I guess, a practical application, is change the way that you discuss work. And one of the ways that we do it here is if I'm making people do exercises, I'm always trying to make it competitive. And not just competitive against each other, but competitive against the clock. This is a Kovar's principle. Make it so that they're working their hardest because they want to get the best out of it. So for example, an easy way that I like to make this happen is I'll give them a countdown and I'll say, you guys got to hurry, you only got this much time left, hurry, you're running out of time. And subconsciously the kid goes, oh, I'm about out of time, I better hurry. Because they think, all right, this is my last opportunity to do this thing. And it might be something that's difficult, but they're going, I better go fast because I want to make sure I get the most out of this limited time that I have. That's one way to do it. Another is making sure that you change the way you discuss it. So instead of me saying, all right, you have to do this thing, I say, okay, I'm going to give you this job because I know you can handle it. And you've been showing me a lot of good stuff recently. So here's this that I usually wait to give to the more higher ups. But I think you can handle it. Can you handle it? And if not, I'll give it to someone else. And now you just said, okay, this is an exclusive job. This is a slightly difficult job. Still saying what it is. I'm not going to lie to them and say, hey, here's this amazing task that I'm going to give to you. But I'm saying, okay, this is the job. It's exclusive. It's difficult. And I'm giving it to you because I trust you to do a good job. As opposed to me just saying, hey, here's this hard job. They're so much more likely to invest in that task that you give them if you simply change the way you speak about it. And so one of the ways you can practice this in your daily life, and I love to do this is one of my favorite things to do, is hype up anything. So I'm going to say today, here's martial arts, and then I'll give a worldly example. Martial arts, okay, guys, today we're going to practice our front kicks, okay? Whoop-de-doo. Or I could say, all right, guys, today I'm going to show you one of the strongest kicks we got in our martial arts arsenal. I'm going to launch this bag just to show you what it looks like. And I'll bet you guys are going to launch each other today. Now, be careful because you can launch your partner across the room. So we're going to go nice and carefully, but you guys are going to get to launch each other, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And the kids go, holy crap, I'm going to launch my partner across the room? Oh, man. And then I launch somebody, so they go, whoa, it's true! And then they want to launch their partner across the room, which, for better or for worse, is going to make them kick a lot harder. And so advertising things, being a salesman for whatever you do is one way to help. And so in a normal way, one of the ways I like to do this is with questions. I could ask you, hey, how are you doing today? There's nothing wrong with it. And I'd love to do a talk. Side note, I'd love to do a talk about questions, maybe another time. But I could say, how are you doing today? That's fine. Or I could say, how's life going? Just that little bit of spiciness to it. I like to say spicy things up. You're going to make it more spicy. And so I could say, did you do anything cool this week? Or I could say, what was the coolest, craziest thing that you did all week so far? Or the second, I like to do that one, the second craziest thing you've done all week. Because then they go, what, the second one? And I say, okay, what's the first one then? They go, oh, okay, I can answer that. But if you think about everything as, I want to pitch this as interesting. I want them to want to answer my question, not just have to answer my question. If you go at it from that standpoint, people are going to be a lot more open to you, and they're going to be a lot more passionate about answering your question or doing the thing that you say.
Okay, so now that we've talked about trust and how a healthy work environment operates, I kind of want to transition into when the business has a success, when something awesome happens. That is an opportunity. Yeah, it's great that something cool happened and that the business did something great. But that's an opportunity to do something that'll make the potential even greater. Do you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the last point is teamwork. And what you're talking about of what to do when you celebrate is, now that you have invested your time and effort into these people, now you help them celebrate together, because they talked through the problem, they came up with the solution, you entrusted them with the solution, and now you're going to celebrate it and celebrate them for making the solution happen. And so the last piece is teamwork, and going at it from the angle of, if we're going for the same goals, then we all should celebrate together when we achieve those goals. It's not just me, hey, look at me, I'm doing such a great job. When we achieve goals and they get to goals, you better celebrate them, because that's not your work, it's theirs. It's not your celebration, it's theirs. It's not your milestone that you reached, it's their milestone that they reached. You just told them what to do. As a leader, you just told them where to go and what to do, and they're the ones who did it. And so celebrate the goals when you make it to it. Make it clear that it's their responsibility as well to cause the business to succeed. So the teamwork aspect of it is, if I put us all in the same goal, I know we talked about this a little bit, but if I say this is our goal, not just my goal, this is our goal. Our goal is we're going to hit 300 students by the end of the year. And this is our goal, and when we achieve it, we're going to celebrate like nobody's business. Then now it's not just, hey, I want you guys to get our numbers up. It's, we are working together. We are invested in this goal together. So I want you to make, we sell toy pigeons. Okay. This is the first random example that I could come up with. And instead of me saying, I need the sales to be at this level, I need us to sell 1,000 pigeons a month, okay, 1,000 sales every month, I say, our goal is we're going to up our numbers. Last month, we did a great job. This month, we're going to sell 1,000 pigeons a month. And when we get to our goal, I'm going to take you all out, and we're going to go to this steakhouse, and we're going to party. We're going to have a great time, and maybe we'll go paintballing, or axe throwing, or laser tag, or whatever amazing thing that they would love doing, because it's their celebration. They should get to choose what happens. And so you could talk about that with your team. That's just good communication. But if you set that as a goal of, here's our goal and here's the end reward, now they're way more invested, as opposed to me just saying, hey, I want you to do this. So much stronger will they work if you give them an ultimatum, 1, and a reward, 2, and a reason, 3. The reason should be first, I think, because he who has a why can bear almost any how. So start with the why. Here's why you should want to do this, because when we do, we're going to succeed, and we're going to be amazing, and we're going to celebrate. So just to recap, I think the teamwork one, getting people on board, sort of like investing in the mission, what we talked about at the beginning, the way you do that is give them a why. Is definitely give them a why. Give them a why do I want to do this, and make them invested. Make them want to invest. Don't make them, hey, you must be invested. But say, here's why you want to be invested. Here's the benefit of trusting us and working hard, and this is what's going to happen when we do.
And
it's
we're with them, right?
Yeah, with us. We're going to work hard together, and we're going to achieve together. I'm not just going to tell you, here's what you got to do. We're going to do this together. We're going to achieve this together, because then it's a sense of camaraderie too. And by the way, back to one of the first statements we were talking about, happy employees are brought about by how they're treated by their leaders and their peers. Making them work together is another big part of teamwork. As in, not only are you working with me, but we're all working together. We're a team. We're not just a business. We're a team. I'm going to make us a team that's going to succeed. And so, for example, in martial arts, I love putting people in lines and saying, hey, I want to listen to the lines and hear which line is the loudest with their kiyas. And there's no prize or reward, but now it's, okay, we got to work together to make this happen. Or I say, all right, y'all, this is a big class. I want to see if you guys can send it with these kicks. I want to watch them together, and we're all going to see if we can do them at the same time. Or quite literally, this is a drill I got from Grandmaster Chip Townsend. You make a circle, and you all squat, and you say team at the same time. You're building that team of we are all going down together, and we're all coming up together. We're all doing the exact same thing. We're being treated fairly. That's another part. Fairly. We didn't talk about that as much. Fairly being we're treated equally. I'm not going to give this person full treatment and this person only a little bit. I'm going to give everyone an equal amount, an equal say. Not that I drop my treatment with one person, but I raise it with everyone else. That everyone is important here. Everyone is valued, regardless if you're the manager's assistant or the janitor. We're all in this together. And so if you make sure people know that, they're going to be way more invested.
All right. That was awesome. Okay. I think this is a great place to wrap it up. We kind of laid out the steps today, and I like how it was structured.
So start with you. You are the leader. Make sure that you start there. That's the starting point, where you start. If that's not clear enough, you're missing the whole rest of this.
Then re-listen to the entire episode.
Then re-listen to the whole episode because you missed the point. The point is start with you as the leader. Everything starts with your attitude, your energy, your actions. Everything starts with you. So if something's going wrongly, you should be the first person you look to. Step 2, making sure that when a problem arises, you guys solve it together. You guys are working together. It's a team effort. Step 3, making sure that you're investing in people, making sure that you're investing in them along the way so that when it's time to give negative feedback, you're making sure that you can do that. Step 4, making sure that you trust them to follow through with whatever it is that you give them to do. And then finally, of course, celebrate when they succeed because it's their celebration. It's their goal that they achieved, and you guys achieved it because you worked together. And when you invest in them like that, you're going to have lower turnover rates, you're going to have stronger morale, you're going to have better business and better workers as well.
So there are the steps for you, and I would like to mention, now we are not on the topic anymore, for the next episode.
Yes.
Very excited for this. We have head instructor and manager at Kovar Satori Academy, Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Muay Thai practitioner, and leads the Kovar Systems instructors and training, Mr. Nick Wilson.
Yes,
coming
Shihan
on.
Nick Wilson.
Yes, Shihan Nick Wilson.
I didn't put all the info down, but he's also a 5th degree black belt in Kempo. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. He's a black belt in Dosei Pares and in Eskrima.
Wow.
And
I
Jiu-Jitsu.
didn't know all that.
Yeah, there you go. Fun fact. He's a pretty crazy guy. And we're definitely going to have him on to talk about leadership, for one, how to lead from the front, but also how to lead from the back. And we'll have a lot of amazing topics we'll talk about, including his journey as an MMA fighter, which, yes, he's done that as well. How to make leaders who make leaders. We'll talk about all the different steps of that generational talk. And then also, we'd love to hear your guys' questions. So if you would like to ask a question, feel free to give it to me via Facebook. I'll put a post out about this once this episode airs, so you guys are more than welcome to ask us questions or anything like that. Feel free to talk to me personally if you have any questions. We would love to make this a great episode. He has tons of great wisdom that we will talk about when he comes on.
All right, and that about wraps it up. We'll see you all in the next episode. Have a great week, and stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, yes. And always re-stomp the groin. We'll see you guys soon.
Hoop, hoop.